They say the market has changed. Screens instead of ticker tapes, algorithms instead of runners with paper slips. But I smile when I hear that, because I know the truth. The market never changes. Only the faces do. I've watched men destroy themselves in every generation, in 1907, in 1929, in every so-called new era since, and always for the same reason. They forget that the market is nothing but human nature on display. Greed, fear, hope, and ignorance, painted in numbers that move faster than most can think. When I was a boy, I stood in the bucket shops with coins I could barely afford to lose. Chalk dust in the air, my heart pounding with every quote. I learned something there that no school could ever teach. The price tells the story before the news does. That was my first real secret. Not a formula, not a trick, a truth. If you want to spot a breakout, not after it happens, but before, you must learn to see what the crowd cannot. You must train your eyes to read the tape, not the headlines. Because the breakout never begins with noise. It begins with silence. I remember the first time I saw it, the calm before a move that would change my life. It was 1901, Union Pacific. The market was quiet, volume thinning, but the price refused to give back ground. Every dip was met with quiet, patient buying. That's how strength speaks, not with fireworks, but with refusal. The price held firm like a general refusing to retreat. That day, I learned my first principle of spotting breakouts. Accumulation always precedes revelation. When strong hands are building their positions, the chart whispers. The moves are small, deliberate, disguised as boredom. But I had learned to watch for it. The tightening of ranges, the refusal to fall, the subtle increase in volume when no one was paying attention. That was the seed of a breakout, growing under the surface while the rest of the market yawned. Most traders wait for confirmation. I never did. Because by the time the newspapers write about it, it's already too late. The professionals are selling to the public by then. I watched it happen in every bull market. The crowd always arrives when the move is nearly over. They chase, they panic, they buy high and sell low. Meanwhile, those who listen to the quiet, those who recognize the early signs, they were already in position, waiting. Let me tell you something. The breakout doesn't reward the impulsive. It rewards the prepared. You see, the market is a mirror. It reflects your own strengths and weaknesses. If you chase noise, you'll always be a victim of it. But if you can learn to recognize stillness, to sense when the tape is too quiet for too long, you'll know something is about to break. That's where the first secret lives. The strongest breakouts begin in boredom. While others lose patience, I study. While they give up, I wait, because I know, when the market seems dead, it's only sleeping before the storm. The first secret is patience, but not the kind you read about in books. Patience that cuts through greed. Patience that feels like pain. Patience that keeps you from jumping in too early or walking away too soon. That's what separates the crowd from the professional. The crowd needs excitement. The professional needs opportunity. And opportunity never announces itself. It hides in quiet charts, in steady bases, in prices that refuse to fall apart. That's where I live, in the silence before the explosion. But most traders never learn to listen. They look at prices as numbers, not as words. And because of that, they miss the message entirely. When I studied the tape, truly studied it, I began to see emotions behind every fluctuation. Panic had a rhythm, so did confidence. A stock didn't just move up or down, it spoke. And if you watched long enough, you could hear what the crowd was thinking before they even acted. That brings me to my second secret. Secret number 2, watch how price reacts to bad news. That sounds simple, doesn't it? But it's the single greatest test of strength a market can reveal. You see, anyone can buy in good times. Anyone can talk bullish when the news is glowing. But the real breakouts, the ones that carry for months, they begin when price refuses to die, even when it's been given every reason to. I remember in 1915, Bethlehem steel was on everyone's lips. Rumors swirled, the market trembled on war headlines. Yet while others dumped in fear, I watched the stock hold steady. Each dip met by eager hands. Each sell-off absorbed like it didn't matter. That's when I knew. Strength that ignores fear is strength worth following. When bad news can't kill a stock, something powerful is brewing. That's not luck. That's informed money, silent and patient. Those are the insiders, the professionals, the ones who know more than the papers do. So I learned, never judge a market by its noise. Judge it by its resistance to noise. If the price refuses to bow to pressure, it's not weak, it's coiling. That's your signal. The crowd sells on fear. The professional studies the reaction. Now you might think this requires special access or inside tips. It doesn't. The tape gives you all the information you need, if you learn to translate it. But remember this, the market never gives easy tells twice. Once a pattern becomes obvious, it's already lost its value. That's why I never looked for repetition. I looked for behavior. And that leads to secret number 3. Volume reveals conviction. Price may lie, but volume confesses. When a breakout begins, volume doesn't whisper, it declares. Not in a burst of chaos, but in a steady rise of participation. It's like watching a wave gather strength before it crashes onto shore. When a stock tightens into a narrow range, and suddenly the daily turnover begins to increase, not violently, but rhythmically, that's your cue. The professionals are loading up quietly. They're accumulating before the crowd wakes up. The amateurs think the breakout is when price surges past resistance. But the true professionals, the ones who make fortunes, they're already in before that moment. They've seen the footprints, the rising volume, the drying up of selling pressure, the steady, deliberate bids. When you learn to spot those footprints, you stop being a follower. You become part of the invisible current that moves before the tide turns. I remember when I caught a move in Anaconda Copper back in the early days. The stock had been dormant for weeks. Everyone called it dead money. But I watched it. I saw that quiet volume. Not enough to make headlines, but enough to tell me that someone with deep pockets was preparing. Days later, it broke through resistance and never looked back. The crowd called it a surprise. I called it confirmation. That's the real art of reading the market, not reacting to movement, but anticipating it. Most traders chase action. They need to feel alive to see motion. But I learned that the best trades don't start with fireworks. They start with calm discipline, a pulse beneath the surface, a heartbeat that only the attentive can feel. Volume doesn't shout. It murmurs, then builds. If you can sense that rise before the crowd notices, you've already won half the battle. But here's the danger. Once a breakout begins, the tape starts to lie again. Emotions take over. Greed floods in. Volume spikes, and now everyone thinks they've discovered the next great move. That's when the professionals begin to distribute, selling into the very excitement they created. I've done it myself. It's how the market always works. That's why spotting the early signs is the only edge that lasts. Once the crowd joins, your edge is gone. So listen to me carefully. You can't predict markets, but you can prepare for them. You can't know the future, but you can recognize when the present is whispering that something is coming. The tape doesn't lie, but it demands interpretation. It will never tell you when. It will only tell you soon. And when that whisper becomes a murmur, when you feel the tension in the price, the compression of energy, the quiet defiance of weakness, that's when you prepare to act. But not yet, because patience without timing is foolish. That brings me to the 4th secret, the one most traders never master. Every great move has a rhythm, a pulse that can't be seen, only felt. And if you've been watching long enough, if you've trained your eyes to see what the crowd ignores, you'll sense when that rhythm changes. That's where timing lives. Not in guessing, not in luck, but in feeling the shift from hesitation to conviction. Secret number 4. The breakout begins one day before it's visible. You see, most traders wait for confirmation. A clean breakout, a close above resistance, a big candle that tells them, now it's safe. But there's no safety in trading, only opportunity. And opportunity doesn't wait for comfort. The best trades I ever made, the kind that made my name, they all came one day before the obvious move. That's when conviction meets courage. I could feel it in the tape, the way selling suddenly dried up, the way the bid started to lift, the way every dip was immediately met with buying. You can't chart that. You can't automate it. You can only feel it by watching the behavior of price like a living thing. And that's what I want you to understand. The market is alive. It breathes. It hesitates. It faints. When you've watched it long enough, you begin to feel its pulse in your bones. When I sensed that rhythm change, I never waited for the perfect signal. I took my position small, and I tested it. Because that's how professionals trade. They test the waters before diving in, and when the tape confirmed my suspicion, when price expanded on rising volume, when resistance shattered like glass, then I pressed. That's how you catch the move before it becomes a story. Most traders want certainty, but certainty is the enemy of profit. If you wait until it feels obvious, it's already too late. That's why secret number 4 isn't about prediction. It's about readiness. When you've studied the range, the behavior, the volume, and the reaction to bad news, you'll know the exact moment when inaction feels like a mistake. That's when you strike. The early breakout is not seen by the eye. It's felt by the trained instinct. And instinct isn't magic. It's memory. Memory built from thousands of hours watching the market lie, stall, trick, and finally reveal itself. When you've seen it enough times, your hand just knows. That's what I mean by timing. Not guessing, not gambling. Responding with discipline to the signal that others are too distracted to notice. But even then, there's one more secret. The hardest one of all. Because spotting a breakout is useless if you can't stay in it. And that is secret number 5. The real profit lies in sitting still. You see, every amateur can buy right, but very few can sit right. The market has a cruel way of testing your patience after you've done everything right. You'll enter perfectly, watch the move begin, and then a pullback, a shakeout, a whisper of doubt. You'll be tempted to take a quick profit, to feel safe. That's how most traders destroy themselves. Not by being wrong, but by being right. Too early, too scared, too small. When I caught the great moves of my career, I didn't make my fortune by trading constantly. I made it by holding on to conviction when everyone else lost theirs. When a breakout truly begins, when price surges through resistance on real volume, when emotion floods the market, that's not the time to sell. That's the time to hold. Because that's when the amateurs are buying from you tomorrow, at prices you saw coming yesterday. The market rewards the few who can do nothing while others panic. To hold in silence while the crowd screams is the mark of a professional. I remember 1929. The world thought I was lucky, but it wasn't luck. It was discipline. I'd seen the signals, the exhaustion, the overconfidence, the reckless speculation. When the time came, I didn't react emotionally. I acted on what I'd trained myself to see. And when others froze, I moved. That's the truth about breakouts, both on the way up and the way down. They're not born of chaos, but of order that's been building for months, waiting for one crack to unleash it. And if you've trained your eyes to see that tension, you'll be ready when it breaks. So remember this. Secret number 1, the strongest breakouts begin in boredom. Secret number 2, strength reveals itself through resistance to bad news. Secret number 3, volume exposes conviction before price does. Secret number 4, the real breakout begins one day before it's visible. Secret number 5, the profit belongs to the one who can sit still. You won't find these in textbooks, because they can't be taught in words. They must be earned through watching, failing, and learning. The market is the greatest teacher in the world, if you survive long enough to listen. Every tick, every hesitation, every false start, they're lessons written in motion. You either see them or you don't. And if you don't, the market will make sure you pay tuition. So when you open your charts tomorrow, don't chase the noise. Don't look for excitement. Look for silence. Look for defiance. Look for the quiet strength that refuses to bend. That's where the next breakout is hiding, in plain sight, waiting for the few who can stand still long enough to see it. And if you can learn to listen, truly listen, you'll find that the market is always whispering the same thing. The next move is already beginning.